Hello everyone, my name is Abby and I'm the Young Adult Assistant at the Twin Lakes Library System and I use she, her pronouns. So today I'm going to be talking to you about my favorite book that I read in 2020. So I think I read 45 books last year, and this is actually something I read towards the end of the year, but it was my favorite thing I read all year. I was so excited. I was texting everyone about it, telling everyone they needed to read it, so I thought I would put it in here. So I'm just going to get right into it, and the book that I will be talking about today is A Song of Race and Ruin by Roseanna A. Brown. And we have this both in our physical collection, and it is available on Libby, so either way you want to. I think it's an ebook on Libby, so I don't think it's an audiobook, so if you want to wait, give it some time. And then Common Sense Media recommends this book for ages 13 and up, and I think that's a totally fair rating. That's exactly where I would put it at. So this book follows two different main characters. So our first one is Malik, and he is traveling with his two sisters, and they are coming from their war-torn place of Eshra. And it's like, it's terrible. There's poverty, there's war, they are treated very poorly there, so he's leaving there and he's going to the city of Zion, which is the prosperous desert city. Like, that's where the palaces and everything is. And they're going during the Solstacia festival, and because there's a lot of people coming in, so it kind of makes more sense for them to get in, and they sort of have to forge their papers to get into the city of Zion, because Eshrins are not really appreciated or wanted there. So that's what he does with his sisters. And unfortunately, something happens that results in his younger sister, Nadia, being taken by a vengeful spirit, and as a sort of payment. And so Malik has to sort of strike a deal with this spirit to get Nadia back, and he has to kill the crown princess of Zion, Karina, in order to get Nadia's freedom. And if he doesn't, Nadia doesn't come back. So he's sort of tasked with trying to kill the princess. And so he has to sort of rig his way into this contest that would get him the ability to meet the princess and, find a way to kill her during it. And then on the other hand, we're following Karina, who, her mother has been assassinated. She's a sultana. Her mother's been assassinated, and her court is threatening mutiny. Like, they're not really interested in following her lead, and she also sort of has to deal with running Solstacia, and so she's dealing with all of these really complex different things that are happening, and she's very overwhelmed emotionally, and she decides that she's going to try to find a way to resurrect her mother, because she doesn't think she can handle everything that's going on, while she thinks her mother definitely could. And so she tries to use ancient magic to do this, but in order to do this, she also needs to get the beating heart of a king, and so she offers her hand in marriage as the prize for Solstacia. So whoever wins gets to marry Karina, but they do not know that Karina is planning on killing them. So her and Malik's story sort of intersect that way. And, as it goes on, they sort of, start to be drawn to one another, and, more is going on with the magic in the world around them. And so all of that's sort of happening. And yeah, I'm not going to say anything more because I don't want to spoil it. So this is actually going to be a duology. So it's like, I've talked about Six of Crows. So like Six of Crows is like 2 books, but it's it's a series. This is going to be another book, and the second book comes out this year, and I'm so excited for it. Like I said, this is my favorite book I read all last year. I think it's incredible. It's a debut novel too, which is really amazing because you'd never know it by reading it. So why do I love it? Well, again, as I just said, it'll be a series, which is great. I think the magic system is really interesting, and a lot is happening in the magic system, but Brown really explains it super well. It's never like unclear, I feel like, to the reader what's going on. I feel like it's all really well put together and presented in a way that everyone can understand when they're reading this. The characters in this book, I love them so much. I think about them every day. which sounds crazy, but ever since I read this book, I like think about them. I message everyone, like my boyfriend. I told him, I was like, I can't stop thinking about this book. He hasn't even read it, and he knows what the characters' names are and who. Like, I'm not obsessed with it. But they're both so deeply complex. Like, they're both being put in these really hard moral positions where, you know, Malik is trying to save his younger sister, but he has to kill someone to do it, whereas Karina is trying to save her mom, but she has to kill someone to do it. And it's just like, they're both so three-dimensional, and they have so much going on in both their lives, and you just want to protect them both because it's such a hard thing that both of them are going through. And there's not like one person who you, I think, like better in this, like, because they're both in these really morally compromising positions that typically you'd be like, oh, well, that person's, you know, more valid, whereas this person's not. But I think, like, I kind of understand both of their perspectives. Obviously, I don't agree with the method of which they're doing it, but I understand why they feel desperate enough to be in this position. So, yeah, so it was, you know, it's just, like, constantly watching them make these decisions and just wanting them to find some sort of way out of it that won't result in them having to morally corrupt themselves. I think the writing in this book is so beautiful. Just the way that Roseanna A. Brown describes everything is just, it's very lush, and like I feel like you get such a great image in your head. And also I think she has a lot of really quotable lines in this. There's one quote towards the end of the book, and I think it's, do not underestimate the strength it takes to be kind in a world as cruel as ours. And I just like memorized that because I just thought it was such an incredible line. I'm not even like, I promise I'm not even like looking at the book right now or looking at something that says it. I just really like love that line. And I think she has a lot of amazing lines in the book that just like, they tug on your heartstrings and you're like, wow, this is incredible. And then also there are tropes that I personally really like in this. So if you also are interested in some of these, you know, there's like the really cool, like intimidating girl, who, you know, is a lot more deeper than she is perceived. She's very powerful. You know, magic is all in this. Enemies to lovers. Those are all things that I really enjoy in books. And so if you really like those in books, then you would probably really like this book. Yeah. And then this was, I thought, really cool, and it's the infusion of West African culture and folklore that makes for really interesting world building. So she bases a lot of it, I think she is from somewhere in West Africa. Let me double check. Let's look it up really fast, just because I want to make sure I'm saying this right. I feel like I read that she was from somewhere in Africa, but maybe I'm wrong. So let's do this. Yes, she was born in Ghana. And so she infuses a lot of West African culture and folklore into this, which is, I've never seen that in YA. I know there are YA fantasies that do include African folklore, I just haven't read them yet. But this is, I think, the first one that I've really read, and I loved it. I thought it was so beautiful. I thought the way she explains things, you know, for someone who isn't very familiar with West African folklore and culture, it's really presentable, and I understood it. You know, I just think it was such a really interesting way to build the world up, and it's so different from things I typically see in fantasy. I feel like a lot of the time you're given kind of a Eurocentric sort of fantasy-esque world, so it was really nice to see this instead, very diverse and something different and refreshing. So I really loved that. I thought this book was so deeply emotional. Like I said, I cared so deeply for the character. I cared about literally everyone in this book besides the people that you're not really supposed to care about. You hate them, but I cared so deeply about everyone in this book. I just wanted good things for Karina and Malik so badly. Like, I just wanted everything to work out for them, and that it would all be fine in the end, and that, you know, honestly, like, I feel like we can all understand that probably won't happen, but, like, you know, you desperately want it the whole time you're reading it. And just their journey, like, throughout the book, like, it's just Wow, it's so intense. I really love this book. It's so intense watching their journey throughout this book, both of them, how they grow and change, and just specifically Malik, he's like, when you first meet him, he has panic attacks and he has anxiety and he's struggling a lot with himself, and just watching him sort of come into himself in this book is just incredible. Like, it's just so great to watch his journey. So yeah, there is romance in this book, a little bit of romance, not a lot. I actually think she does a good job of sort of like hinting at it while also staying true to her overall goal of the book. Like, it never becomes overwhelming, and I definitely think it's more of a slow burn, and I think in the second book we'll see a lot more of it, but it's never something that, like, I think she's trying to make it not feel forced, and I think she does a really good job of that. It doesn't feel forced, it feels kind of exactly where you would want it to be. And then last thing is, I just think it's like, it's so hard to stop reading this when you're reading it. Like, I read this book in 3 days, I think. And that was during Christmas when I was like with my family, we were all hanging out. So like I was doing things, but I think I stayed up like Christmas Eve night to finish this. And I stayed up till probably 2 a.m. trying to finish this because I just like could not put it down. Like, I was so interested in what was happening and like concerned about what was going to happen to Karina and Malik, and just, I never wanted to stop reading it, and I cannot wait for the sequel. I'm trying so hard not to just order it, but I really truly like loved this book, so I really recommend it for anyone who wants a fantasy that's kind of different, a really strong debut. If you want a series but you want a really long series, again, this is a duology. If you really like morally complex characters, I think that this is a perfect book. So, also, just random, this is a beautiful cover. I love this cover. I think it's one of the prettiest books I own. Anyways, so that is all for me today, but I will see you again next time. Bye bye.